Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Portal podcast. I am Billy Embody, Matthew Brune, Shea Dixon, along for the ride here with us on this Friday as we wrap up this latest round of Portal podcasts before moving on to our spring football preview content. Podcast name to be determined. But, fellas, let's jump in here with news that LSU did miss out on two of their transfer targets over the last week or so, with a pair of big transfers who had played elsewhere at Power 5 conferences, started a lot of games, both not end up making it to LSU to check it out and going elsewhere. One being Miami offensive line transfer Ja'Kai Clark, commits to SMU earlier this week to reunite with his former coaching staff who had him in Coral Gables for multiple years as he started 39 games there. And then the other one, Iowa lands Virginia linebacker Nick Jackson, an all-ACC performer who got heavily recruited by Iowa out of high school and is headed to play in that defense, which, as we know, is one of the nation's best out there. Quite the opposite from their offense, but that's another story. Let's start with you, Matty B. Which one of these kind of stuck out to you as far as, a tough miss for the Tigers and maybe where they go from here after that?
Yeah, I think Nick Jackson would have been a really solid pickup, solid addition. I mean, we talked about it before, the linebacker room, while they add Omar Spates and obviously you add the two freshmen in Whit Weeks and Christian Brathwaite, and, we'll see where Harold Perkins ends up. But even if you throw him in that room, it's not the deepest room as far as proven talent goes. So that's where I start. Obviously getting him, they didn't even get him on campus, so it's not like they, quote unquote lost that, but not to get him is something that I think is notable because of what they still, I think, need at the linebacker position is, can they find one more guy that can contribute on a consistent basis? And if not, do they just end up adding a back end type guy that maybe has 3 or 4 years of eligibility left down the line? So yeah, he's the one I was looking at. Obviously Clark, we've talked about the center position before, but I'll let y'all talk about that. I took the linebacker one.
Yeah, and Shea, we've talked about center Jake Renfro was on the board for LSU. He ends up reuniting with his former staff from Cincinnati at Wisconsin. Kind of the same story there with Ja'Kai Clark, somebody that kind of maybe got pushed out in some sense by Mario Cristobal bringing in another center option from UCF, but still a guy that started 39 games between guard and center for the Hurricanes and was going to take visits to LSU, Missouri, West Virginia, but in the end just ends up, following his coaches, knowing that he can walk right in there and start day one.
Yeah, I mean, I think one, as Matty B noted, neither of these guys visited, and all 11 guys that they got out of the portal, like in December and January, that are now on the team, had visited at some point. And there were some secret visits in there, and then guys popped, and then we found out afterwards, oh, they were on campus last week or whatever it might have been. These were two guys who, A, didn't visit. B, I think it's a unique situation, contrary to most kids in the portal, of these guys are both grad transfers. Like they're both going to wrap up at Miami and Virginia, then leave in the summer because they want to get degrees. And then that allows them to move as grad transfers. Grad transfers are looking almost for an immediate starting job. And I'm not saying that Nick Jackson couldn't have come in and won a starting job. It might even have been a little more hard pressed for a guy like Clark to come in and win a job, like on the O-line. I think that's probably a big factor here. Like, they went to spots where they will be starting next year. Like, I don't think you could guarantee that either of those guys 100% would be starting if they came here. If Omar Spates wasn't in the picture from Oregon State, then maybe Nick Jackson takes it a little more seriously. But after Spates, I don't think that, like, he's a 1-year guy. It's pretty much guaranteed at this point, if he comes in and looks the part, that he's going to start. As Matty B said, they move Harold Perkins around. You've got Greg Penn. You'd like more linebackers. We'll talk about that later, but you're probably hard pressed to find or stack up a bunch of grad transfers who only have a year and really want to be able to play and not go somewhere else and just compete for playing time. So I think that was a big thing too. And for me, it just resets it. I don't really think that they'll add anyone between now and May because They know everyone's that is in the portal unless they make another move on a guy and bring him in March. I would bet they're going through spring ball, getting a feel for what they have, and then going from there.
Yeah, I think Ja'Kai Clark, I mean, Billy kind of touched on it. I mean, it's not like he was an all ACC caliber player at Miami. So him stepping in, and even though we have question marks about whether it's Charles Turner or Marlon Martinez, that still would have been a battle there. And like you said, I think grad transfers for the most part, you want somewhere where you can start. So we'll see. That Renfro, the Wisconsin eventual commit, would have been probably a lock to start. I'm not sure about Clark.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I mean, as LSU goes through this, now that the portal window is closed for the early guys, the guys that can really go through spring. I mean, there's very few options, if any, that would be able to come into LSU and be here in time for spring ball, like Jaden Daniels did. It would have to be a very unique situation now. So they do turn their attention to that next portal window as far as who can enter during that time and come in and compete. And it could be more grad transfers that, could graduate in May and end up, going through spring. They maybe have an extra year of eligibility. They have that COVID year and they go through spring and they say, you know what, this isn't the spot for me. There's new coaching staff. I got to go find somewhere I can play and be in a better situation. There could be guys that are younger that enter after going through spring and not liking it. I mean, it is going to be a complete mixed bag when it comes to who enters in that May window, a 2-week window for guys to, enter, and then they'll be able to be recruited over the course of the summer and all of that. But when you look at the remaining needs, I think we're all in agreement that they remain the same. You're looking for an interior guy on the offensive line if you can find one, a depth piece, a low risk guy to bring in for 1 year potentially, or somebody really good that has a bright future that has multiple years left. Wouldn't be bad if they could find that in the next transfer portal window. You look at linebacker, another depth piece would be nice. You look at tight end, though. I think tight end is the one that stands out to me the most. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think tight end is an interesting spot. I was going to ask y'all, and I'll let Shea kind of give his thoughts on it. But I was going to ask y'all because we haven't had portal windows before. I struggle to remember how likely it is that players leave after spring ball, and so obviously, y'all are older than me, so how likely do you think it is that we see, like, compared to what we saw in the first window, how much do you think we see after the spring?
It won't be nearly as much. I mean, look, Joe Burrow left after spring ball, but that's guys who get into battles for spots. And then you're like, oh, if I didn't win the spot, I'm going to go somewhere else. And I guess that could happen. Obviously, that will happen. Then it's just a matter of, okay, did those type of guys fit our needs? Like, I don't think a bunch of beast mode starters are hitting the portal after spring, because you would have thought if they wanted to do that, they would be already have transferred and picked a new school. So certainly less active. I agree with Billy that when you look at like O-line, for instance, well, you've got all your starters back minus Anthony Bradford, but really Miles Frazier and Garrett Dellinger sort of split time at guard as starters. So you've got 2 starters back on the O-line. Look, we've talked to sources. Billy laid it out. It's safety, it's linebacker, it's interior O-line, and veteran tight end. They don't need starters at right now, safety, for instance. They just don't have much depth there, at least not proven depth. And not many guys are going to come in and start over Greg Brooks or Major Burns or, Sage Ryan is back there. At O-line, not many guys are going to come in and start over the 5 they've got. It's just that they lost Cardell Thomas and Doomerville and Xavier Hill and one more in there that I'm blanking on. I think they had 4 guys enter the portal. Cam Wire. So you lost a lot of backups, right? And that hits you with depth more than anything. Tight end feels like the only one, and they've addressed linebacker already a little bit with Spates. Tight end feels like the only one because you put veteran on it that you're like, oh, we could really use that person this year. And whether that means they're starting over Mason Taylor, probably not, but they want to be playing multiple tight ends, so that person would be playing a lot. So for me, tight end would be still the biggest need for next year's team. I think if you're just looking at the future, of course, they need more linemen. You'd want more linebacker depth. You want more safety depth. I think they can address those things and they can bring some guys up and develop them, and that will be the depth. Tight end, just for that 1 year fix for me, still seems like one that they probably wish they would have already popped a veteran tight end, is my point.
And it's so hard to find tight ends. I've covered a few different tight end recruitments now from the transfer portal as SMU has looked for one. And it is wild. It is such a hard position to find someone that can come in and compete at a high level right away. And, Baylor ends up getting a guy like Jake Roberts from UNT. Sorry, Matty B. But like he was one of the top transfer tight ends out there in a big body. He could have fit somewhere in LSU's plan, especially since they have Mason Taylor. I was a little surprised they didn't go in on him, quite frankly, just because he's had some production. He's got multiple years left, but, has that ability to kind of do multiple things. I mean, that would be it's a hindsight 2020 argument, but that's how hard it is to find a tight end that really can do all the things that tight ends need to do. They need to be able to catch the football and they need to be able to block. They can't be one-dimensional in this offense to really kind of fit in, at least the way we're seeing the tight ends used by LSU so far. They've got a bunch of different formations and ways they can line them up, and that's what they want to get to at some point.
Yeah, and remember last year they were also looking for a tight end, and I think Brian Kelly even said either during spring or before spring, it was like, we're looking at a tight end. Where he straight up said it, and they just nothing ever came about. So they ended up obviously going to Mason Taylor, the freshman, and Cole Taylor a little bit early on. So yeah, it's not an easy situation. You bring up Jake Roberts now that I think about it. I think him to Baylor just makes a lot of sense to me. Like that's a logical jump up there. But yeah, I mean LSU could have definitely looked that direction as well. That's interesting.
I mean, when we look at linebacker, what's your guys' goal as far as what they can bring in from the portal? I know, Shea, you mentioned there's not going to be much as far as, instant starters going in. I don't think that's the expectation, unless there are unique situations where coaching staffs are clearly new and not meshing with this player who's been the starter for quite some time. What do you want out of that linebacker addition? Are you looking at somebody that can provide depth, who's a younger player that maybe doesn't like it after a full year at their destination? Do you want kind of a veteran role player? What would you be trying to accomplish if you're LSU for this group and rounding it out?
I think a veteran linebacker would be nice, just to have another one with Spates. But I think Penn, I'm in the camp, and I've said it many times, that Greg Penn will continue to make steps and be a reliable player for them. I almost then think you would say, not settle, but then you would say you're okay with taking someone who's like a West Weeks. Remember, they got him out of Virginia a year ago. He had kind of played on special teams at Virginia, really as a freshman, but then comes in, can start on special teams, becomes a 2 deep player for you at linebacker, and you trust him enough to put him out there and get guys some rest, throughout a game. So if I'm not getting a Nick Jackson, Omar Spates type, I would 100% take a younger linebacker like a West Weeks that you think could play at this level and can also give you something this year.
Yeah, I think you worded it well. I forgot earlier when I was talking about tight end to mention that I think honestly safety is my most important position because man, there's no depth, zero depth there. I like Kylan Jackson. I like obviously Stamps and Toviano we'll see what they do at corner initially, but and I like them as well. But we're putting a lot on Sage Ryan, Matthew Langlaw, even like a Jordan Allen, who I think is locked in at nickel. We're putting a lot on those guys. Obviously, Brooks and Burns will need to stay healthy for this team in its current construction. But even behind them, I have zero answers and zero expectations of what I would see if Brooks or Burns went down and missed any time.
Nope, I'm with you on that one because Langlois, super talented coming out of Catholic Point Capee, has just been injured in back-to-back years. A good bit like Chris Hilton almost. Like, the talent's there. It's just they haven't been healthy enough for you to have them out there consistently. And then, as you noted, they've got some guys like, look, you signed safeties. You mentioned Kylan Jackson and all those guys, but none of them have played at the college level, obviously. And even then, Greg Brooks has been your starting nickel. Now you're assuming you have to put him at safety just to get 2 starting safeties with Major Burns and Sage Ryan. You can play that same game with. Like, okay, yeah, you can play nickel. Do you want him as your backup safety? Do you want him as one of the safeties? If so, you're really relying on other people to play nickel. Maybe it's some of these new transfers like Deuce Chestnut, but yeah, safety depth. The starters don't concern me at safety. It's just the depth because they have some other guys. We've just never seen them play. And that's a scary proposition, as Matthew noted, if a Greg Brooks or Major Burns ever gets hurt and has to miss some games.
And the only last thing I'll say on that is I had hope, or I have hope, I guess, that maybe Zy Alexander could, if necessary, drop back to safety like Jarek Bernard Converse. That is the only kind of saving grace I would have, is like, okay, if Zy Alexander can do that, which he didn't do much at Southeastern. He was a corner, like a true boundary corner at Southeastern. So, but if he does have that range, he's 6'3", he's, super athletic. I think that could be one of the backup safeties if they need him there. But again, you're relying on a lot of question marks at this moment.
Yeah, I think you make a great point about Zai in that position. And I mean, you look at JV and Toviano, you look at some of those guys that, were necessarily recruited at corner, but they have the ability to cover and move back, which I think when LSU's been bad at safety from, point to point, they haven't been able to cover. I mean, that is the biggest issue that's been back there. When it comes to maybe an under the radar position, out of the transfer portal, maybe a need people aren't talking enough about. Is there anything that stands out to you guys right now about that group that you could, maybe see them making a move if the right person enters after spring practice?
I don't think they had a running back or a receiver at this point, right? That feels like a stretch. I mean, receiver would only be if maybe they don't think any of the freshmen could help them, which I don't know if that feels right. I feel like they're going to get help from one of these freshmen, if not more than one of these freshmen, not as starters, but, just down the line. Maybe an injury, obviously, that happens in spring, knock on wood, but, that obviously could change the dynamic. But I think a running back or a receiver would surprise me. I think a defensive lineman for the most part would surprise me as well. So I think they've checked off every other box. I mean, they signed, 4 corners as well. So.
No, I'm with him. I think those 4 positions we've circled are the ones. Everything D-line and corner got checked off. 10 of your 11 transfers play, or 9 of your 11 transfers play those 2 positions. Then we get back into the positions that we've already talked about. So yeah, I think they're good everywhere. And receiver and running back are 2 places that freshmen can contribute. So I feel like they'll be good there no matter what. Like, they've got depth, certainly have depth at running back, but have enough depth. I think they'll be good.
Yeah, and if they didn't have Nathan Dibert, I might say kicker, but you have Nathan Dibert and you have Damian Ramos, like you're fine.
And I mean, to plug the site here, $30 for access to the BengalTiger.com until September. Founder Club hats are still out there. No hat with Matty B right now.
I don't have my hat.
But
I cleaned up, I organized, and I put my hats in the same spot, and so I don't just have it sitting here anymore.
Well, we got to get on the same page on that front as we move into spring football. But Shea did drop some tidbits on newcomers, some good things coming at the wide receiver position. So after a few weeks of workouts, LSU feeling really good about where that position is for sure from some of their newcomers. So check out those tidbits at thebengaltiger.com. Thank you guys for subscribing to the YouTube channel, getting us to 3,000 subscribers. Keep us going to 4K. That's next up. Guys, let's end with this because, first of all, Matty B has to go to basketball press conference after this. Go check in on Matt McMahon.
Make sure Matt McMahon's doing all right.
See if he's okay. But let's go with your biggest sleeper and your favorite transfer commitment. Let's go round the horn on that, and then we'll get people out of here and on to their Super Bowl weekend.
Biggest sleeper for me, Ovia Gofu. We talked about it before. He surprised me on film. I mean, but this is a guy who started 2 years at Texas, didn't put up great numbers, but I think he can contribute on a consistent basis. So he's my biggest sleeper.
Matty B still, are we doing sleeper and biggest get at the same
I
time
honestly
here?
forgot. I forgot what the second part was.
Okay, yeah.
honestly.
Who is your best addition out of the portal?
Best addition. It's Denver Harris. Denver Harris. I don't need to. I mean, we've talked about him before. He should start. If everything goes right, then he's all conference. Probably this year.
Okay, I agree with Matty B on both, but I'll offer this up then. Because I think Denver Harris is by far the best player they got. Like, I think he'll be the highest draft pick out of these 11 guys. And if everything goes as planned for him, he's got that kind of talent. Don't sleep on Aaron Anderson, obviously, but he's a Louisiana guy. Everybody knows that. I'll pick for my sleeper, which kind of is odd that he's kind of one of the higher ranked guys anyways, but I think Deuce Chestnut contributes more than people probably realize. And he's played a couple years. He's got a couple years left. If he gets into a situation where he plays really well this year and then still comes back for another year, it becomes a really valuable addition for you. You get 2 years out of him. So I'll say Chestnut coming from Syracuse with the ability to play nickel and corner is who I'll choose as my sleeper if you want. But I do think Denver is the best player they added.
It's a good pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear. We've talked about it a lot. Denver Harris is the best player out of the transfer portal. I'll say my sleeper, probably Paris Shand. I just think coming from Arizona, he just, has kind of been on the uptick as far as his statistics go. That program's kind of been a little bit of a mess, so maybe a better situation with LSU and Jamar Cain, somebody he trusts and knows. He can get back onto that level of improving, and he can factor in somewhere along the defensive line. I mean, he's got a little bit of versatility, I think, just looking at his body type and his size. You can maybe play on the, not necessarily a stand-up edge by any means, but, play out that strong side defensive end, play with his hand in the dirt, maybe slide inside. He's got some options, and that's the thing that I think with this defensive line haul overall, they have, quite a few options and ways to put guys in positions, whether it be, downs 1 to 2, a third down package. They have some different situations and in their scheme that they can use all of these guys in for the most part. So biggest sleeper for me is going to be Paris Shand. And then that best addition is Denver Harris. I think with what we're starting to hear about Aaron Anderson, I don't know if he could end up being that highest drafted guy unless he really dazzles and, multiple punts and kickoff returns for touchdowns and, it just becomes a slot killer and things like that. But athletically, he's going to fit just fine in this offense and give them some options and some creative ways to, maybe hit some explosives in the short passing game and just let him go get it, or line it up and just let him, run by a guy, in the slot. I think there's some different ways to get him the football and get him involved, some quick hitters and things like that to really get the offense maybe with some more explosive plays and things like that. So I'm saying Aaron Anderson could edge out Denver Harris as far as where he could be drafted, even if Denver ends up having a good LSU career. Aaron Anderson, if he hits that explosiveness the way he has shown in the past in the high school ranks, he's got a chance. He's got a real chance.
I really like that Paris Shand pick because one of us will be right.
There you go.
I had him as the lowest rated, or my personal lowest ranked, and you like Paris Shand, so one of us will be right. Also, shout out to Jordan Jefferson, my third highest ranked player. I love his film. He's going to be really good.
West Virginia defensive lineman, not ex-LSU quarterback.
Yes, not that one.
Got an extra year. He's got COVID year.
Yeah,
Billy, just because this is our final portal podcast, if you're not watching on video, I'm sorry that you're not getting to enjoy this. That Tampa Bay jersey's got to hit the portal. That's one of the worst jerseys I've ever seen.
Oh no!
Are those flames on the side?
So it's an ode. So when the Lightning came into the league, they were this new team in Florida, and this is back when like the NHL was trying some outrageous jerseys. So the original logo for the Lightning's in the middle, but then they did this alternate jersey that had the flames. It's pretty awesome. I mean, it's got like the waves. It's legit. It's a lot better, and it's coming off a 5-0 beatdown of the Colorado Avalanche last night.
There you go.
Little payback, I guess, from the Stanley Cup.
I like it.
That's why I brought it back out.
Don't listen to Shea, Billy. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, you
yeah.
should wear it next podcast.
I like
actually.
everything but the
Yeah.
flames.
You should
Yeah.
wear it. Wear it. Don't listen to him.
Here, I'll turn the flames around a little bit. There you go.
Oh, now
There
it's
you go.
great.
It's so much better now, right?
It looks awesome.
Oh,
I got to get some LSU jerseys. We got to get Jamar to send me one or something. You know, let's get some.
what a
some
name
more flavor
drop.
up in here.
Just a name drop. Oh, get Jamar to send me one.
Jimmy Chase.
Yeah,
Hey,
get
get
Jimmy
Joe to send you
Chase.
one too.
Let's see if we can get Dan Burrow to get us a Joe jersey and Jimmy Chase to get us a Jamar jersey. Big Sting to get us a
Get
Derek
Justin.
Stingley jersey. Let's see who comes through
Y'all need to-
first.
Y'all need to lower your. We need to get Ty Davis Price to send us maybe a jersey. We got to start somewhere
Honestly,
more than just NFL Offensive Player of the Year or something. We got to set our
Whoa.
bar a little high
Jets,
here.
I mean, Jets, like I've got his cereal box, you know, from when he was on Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Like he's got it. He's got it.
You did get that cool sweater. Yep.
Yep.
damn.
It's an eye catcher. And the cereal box is gonna be worth something one day. So
I need it. I need it for my wall.
yeah, we need some swag. I need to. This room is one day gonna, you know, maybe be a kid's room or something instead of my little setup here. So keeping the temporary setup for now, I guess, and find a spot for, you know, some real
Shout out the Portal Podcast.
memorabilia. Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Portal
RIP.
Podcast hitting the portal until the next window, I guess.
RIP
until we
Portal
bring it back.
Podcast.
Until we bring it back for 2 weeks in May, and then it's retired again.
Yeah. Well, guys, it's been fun. It's been a wild portal season. LSU did very, very well in that regard. Matty B's got to go hang out with Matt McMahon, who needs to hit the portal for next year's team pretty heavily. So we'll be tracking that as well, because that spring window is obviously for basketball players as well. And they have their own portal window and transfer stuff going on too. So we'll be covering a lot of that. Matty B, shout out to him for dropping a lot of analysis right now on the new wave of LSU basketball coming in with their signing classes in men's and women's. So check that out, thebengaltiger.com. Continue to have tons of content on how spring workouts are going, and certainly we'll fire up more spring football preview content as we turn that page over the next month during this dead period. So hope you guys have a great Super Bowl weekend. Quick picks. Who you got?
Chiefs.
Eagles.
I'm going. I really don't like this pick, but I think I'm going Chiefs.
Okay.
I think I'm going Chiefs. I think the way it kind of happened for them to end up in the Super Bowl, I don't know. Patrick Mahomes had a couple weeks to rest up that ankle. I think he's got some up the sleeve. Although I like Jalen Hurts and what they're doing too. We'll see.
Man, I'm never making it to this press conference.
All right, we're wrapping up the pod. Thanks for listening, guys. Please subscribe. Get us to 4,000 subscribers. We'll catch you next time. Appreciate you guys listening, and have a great Super Bowl weekend.